Hi, I'm Mark Adams, and today we're going to get the jump on spring by starting garden seeds indoors. Now, why do I want to start them indoors, you may ask? The reason is some of these garden plants, like tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and flowers like impatiens and begonias, if you planted the seed right into the garden in the middle of May, which is when the soil is warmed up in the Hudson Valley, they wouldn't have enough time to mature and you wouldn't get no fruit out of them. So we're going to start them indoors in February or March in order for them to get the size that we need, which would be like this maybe, and then we can plant them in the garden and they'll get the jump on spring and they'll be ready to give you ripe tomatoes in the middle of August. So how do we do that? The first thing we need is seeds, and I have marigolds and tomatoes here. And the next thing we need to do is find something to plant them in, which would be pots, little strips of Jiffy pots, which are made out of compressed peat moss so that the roots will grow right out of the sides when it's ready to go into the ground. Or we can use a tray like this, which is what I use. And we want to fill it up with some kind of seed starting mix, which I have here. And if you don't want to buy seed starting mix, you can use your own garden soil, but you need to get it fluffy by adding peat moss or something so it's not so hard. And you need to put the garden soil in the oven for an hour at 180 degrees so that you could kill the weed seeds or any kind of diseases that might be in the soil. But this is pre-sterilized, so we can use it and put it right into the tray, which I already did so I won't make a big mess on the table. So here is how it looks once the seed starting mix is into the tray or into the little peat pots. Now I want to sprinkle the seeds on top after I water it thoroughly, by the way. So here's my watering can, and I'm going to put water, pretend it's watering, and I'm going to do this for a long time so it gets really wet. And this is why it's important to have drainage holes in the bottom of your container, because otherwise you'll have a big soup in here and it won't work. So here's some drainage holes in the bottom. And now it's thoroughly moistened and I'm ready to sow my seeds. Let's use tomatoes. And I think there's about 3 seeds in here. No, actually there's about 8, but pretend there's more. So I'm scattering the seeds on top of the soil, like this. Then once the seeds are all on there, I'm going to put this vermiculite on top because I want to keep the moisture in. So I cover them very lightly with vermiculite, which is a mineral which is mined in North Carolina, and it's made from mica, which is expanded in an oven, and it makes a very soft and tender covering so that seeds can come up through it. So there we go. Now, here's what we have. Now I need to cover it with plastic or with a cover of a lid. And this tray actually came with a lid. Voila! I put this plastic lid on the top, and this keeps the moisture in so that the seeds can germinate. And I won't have to water it again until they come up. But there are 2 very important considerations for proper seed germination. The first one is heat. I got a little thermometer here that I bought at the local hardware store, which I would like to keep the temperature at 75 degrees if possible. Now I know your house is probably a little cooler than that. If it's 65 degrees, the seeds will germinate, but they'll just take a little bit longer. If you are able to maintain 75 degrees, if you want to get fancy, you can get one of these heat mats. This is a windowsill heat mat, which would be good for this little guy here. And you can get this heat mat and you plug it in, and this keeps the temperature a little bit warmer. You would still want to use your thermometer to make sure that it's the right temperature. We're going to keep it as close to 75 as we can, and if it's 65 or even 60 or even 55 degrees, the seeds will still germinate, they'll just take longer. For example, tomato seeds at 75 degrees will come up in about a week, and if they're at 65 degrees, it might take 2 weeks for them to germinate. When you get down below 50 degrees, it might take too long, but keep them as warm as you can. Then the other important consideration is light, and this is the big cause for failure in seed starting. If you don't have enough light, the seeds, once they come up, are going to start looking for light. So we're going to get as close to sunlight as we possibly can. I'll cue the sun here. Okay, there's our sun. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
So we're going to have sunlight. Okay, you can go now. And as close as we can come to sunlight is going to help our seeds to look like this. Stop laughing over there. We want them to look nice and sturdy and tough. And if they start to get tall and stringy and bend toward the window, you know you don't have enough light. And if you do have artificial light, any kind of light will do, because these plants are only going to be in there for a month maybe. Then they'll go into the garden where they get all the real light that they need. But the closest you can to sunlight, and 18 hours a day, 14, 12 hours a day at least. So you'll know if they're not getting enough light. Now you leave them like that for a while. You take off the cover. Once they start to germinate, you take off the cover, and then they get air circulation, and then you want to keep watering them when they get dry. But luckily with these drainage holes in the bottom, you don't have to worry about overwatering them. Don't water them too much though, just when they get dry, and then keep them alive, hopefully, until May. Now, if there's only a few in here, you can leave them in the tray, but if it gets crowded like my tray did, you don't want to leave them like this until May, because they're going to get too crowded and they're going to start sprouting up too much. So I'm going to transplant them. So I have a little pot here, and I'm going to take a plant like this, pull it out of the tray, make a little hole here, and put it right in there like that. And then I put it back in the light, and I keep it here until we get a really nice sunny days in early May, and then I'm going to slowly bring it outdoors on a nice day to get it acclimatized. We call that hardening off. We want it to get acclimatized to the cool weather, you know, so in case we put it out into the garden in the middle of May, if we get a really windy day, it won't be used to it. It's too tender. So we gotta give them hardened off. And the way I do that is you put it outside on a sunny, windless day in early May, and then you go to work, and then it starts to get windy, and you tell your boss, I gotta go home and move my tomato plants inside, I'll be right back. So try to pick a day when it's gonna be sunny and not too windy. And then at night you can bring them back in because you don't want them to freeze. But let them get accustomed, get them hardened off, and then finally, it's the middle of May here in the Hudson Valley, and you get beautiful sunny weather, and you have a nice vegetable garden going, and you bring it out and you say, okay buddy, here you go. You take them out of the pot like this, and you see the roots, and you just put it right into the garden like that, and then hopefully about 3 months later you get a tomato like that, and that's your goal. And then you can say, I had success. But you got to write it down. So this is my final tip of the day. Get yourself a diary. I've kept one since 1959. And I put in everything that I plant, when I plant them, what varieties, whether I had success, And I'm still learning. So right in here I said, planted too soon. But no, you can fine tune it, and then if you have a good luck with something, you know what you did right, and if you don't, you just don't do it again. Well, I don't even bother planting eggplant because I never have any luck with it. But Sue does. So thank you for listening and good luck with your garden. They're going to edit my son. Okay, Sue.
Cut.